Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, part 3 of the Mako versus Mexico, we're going to answer the question of which is better. Now if you're subscribed to the channel, you may have seen parts 1 and 2 where I took my 68 Dodge Dart GT convertible down to Mexico, brought it back, did an in-depth look at the paint. Go check out those videos if you haven't so you can see what the Mexico option yields. This video, we're going to talk about the Mako portion in the beginning, and then we're going to do a side-by-side breakdown with scoring on which was better and overall what my recommendations are to you if you're looking to get a good quality paint job on the cheap. So let's do it.
Now if you're subbed to the channel, you know that this is my 77 Ram Charger. It was going to be the Mako candidate. However, I blew the trans after 50 miles and had to sink all the paint money into the repair. So my 78 Trailduster is actually going to be the vehicle we're comparing here for Mako. This is the truck. Before I had it painted, you could see there's some surface rust, but not really too bad. Overall, just a really faded paint job. I even took this thing to the beach many times. You can see I even got the doggos in the back here. It's a great truck, but most importantly, it was rust-free. Just had some dents on the front fender. Also had a big dent in the driver's side quarter panel. Not sure what from, but no worries. I took this truck over to the Maaco in National City, California. We did a walk around the whole thing, identified all the dents and dings and bodywork. I wanted their top tier base coat clear coat. And then went home, stripped all the chrome off, dropped the vehicle back off at the shop, and just 3 weeks later, picked up this. I was definitely happy with the product that Mako was able to deliver. The brown really shimmered in the sunlight. There was definitely some orange peel in places, some overspray on the windows, and there was one little spot on the driver's side door that looked like they had touched it when it was wet, and then they came back and just covered it up with a brush. So it was noticeable. Some people would point it out. But overall, the truck fit in at car shows, and not a single person assumed or guessed that it was a cheap Mako paint job. And when compared to the Dart, they looked eerily similar from around 10 feet away.
Now I'm sure they both look pretty good on your screen, but I wanted to tackle this in a more systematic way. So what I have done, and I'm looking down because I've got notes in front of me, is I have broken this into 6 different categories, and I have judged both the Mexico and the Mako options on a scale from 1 to 10. So the 6 categories that I'm going to discuss today are price, of course, a timeline, how long was the whole process for a finished car to be returned, my overall experience on what was involved in dropping it off, keeping up the tabs with, and picking the car up. I'm not cutting this, so you'll see some cars in the background, or hear them at least. Prep on the vehicle, what prep was done to it from myself as well as from the shop prior to laying paint. The quality of the finished product, because obviously that's super duper important. That's why you're watching this most likely. And the risk associated with going to both, because that is definitely a major category we got to talk about. So, on the 1968 Dodge Dart GT convertible, the Mexico portion, I rated it an 8 out of 10 for price. Now, if you saw parts 1 and 2, you'll know that I paid $9,000 for that, and you'll think, "Ooh, Jeremy, that's too much money for a Mexico option." But to make this apples to apples, we really got to break out the work scope so that the scope matches. In the Mexico portion, he did a bunch of metal work, replaced both quarter panels, both rockers, and some spot patches on the trunk and a fender piece. So if we pull out the cost of the metal work, which I'm assuming to be around like $2,500 based on the time he had the car and the updated pictures I got, that brings the total price down to $6,500. And he also did the full interior. So he had the full front bucket seats, the rear seat, all that upholstery done, which, I'll put that at around $2,500 because I didn't supply materials or anything. He did materials, all that work. So basically, at the end of the day, I assume that the body and paint was around $4,000. And if I were to go to get a respray, he had told me it'd be around $4,000. So $4,000 might seem expensive from Mexico portion, but for the quality of that 68 Dart, it was a fantastic deal. So 8 out of 10 for the Dart. The Trailduster. Now I gave the Trailduster about an 8 out of 10 as well. It was $4,000. When you escalate it up to 2025, I actually spent around $3,400 and some change, but given inflation the past few years, just breaking it down systematically for 3 years, it's around 39 and change, so 4,000 bucks. And that was for their 5-year warranty option. Maaco gives you 3 different pricing points: a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year option for warranties. 5-year obviously being the best quality that they'll offer you, and that was that price. So has a base coat, clear coat setup, not as in depth with primer, everything as the Darts, but the best they had to offer. So both got 8 out of 10s. Timeline. Now, again, making sure the scope of work and the time matches, I'm going to ignore the first few months of the Dart when they were doing all the metal work and just focus on when basically primer or paint started or body work started until I got the car. And that was about 4 months. So my shop in Mexico had the car primered in December of 2024, and the buffing, all the paint, everything involved in the paint and body work until I received the car was in April, so about 4 months. And so I gave that a 5 out of 10, which about average, to be honest. If you take it to a shop here in the States, probably going to be around 4 to 6 months, you know, if they're taking their time doing it right. So right in the middle, 5 out of 10. Now for Maaco, you can't really beat their time. And I think anyone watching this has probably seen or knows of this, but they are super quick. Their model is based on volume, so your car is in and out. I gave Maaco a 9 out of 10. It was like 3 weeks between dropping the Trailduster off and receiving the truck back fully painted, ready to go. Very, very fast. And that included a few days of them just having it sit outside and, you know, bake in the sun and cure. So I was pretty happy with that. Next is experience, and this includes like what it took for me to go get a quote, what it took for me to drop the vehicle off, updates, pickup, etc. I gave Mexico, the 68 Dart, a 4 out of 10. As you could imagine, it's quite the hassle to go down to Mexico to bring a car to a shop. You don't want to tow it, you want to drive it. That way you're not paying an import tax. So I drove the 68 Dart down. If you're 5 hours away from the border, this could be a problem. Maybe you tow it down before you hit the border, drive it off, and then drive it over. That's totally fine. But then coming back, it's always 2 to 5 hours sometimes. And naturally, I forgot a couple things, so I had to go back another time, and again spent around 3 hours waiting in line to come back in the States. So 4 out of 10. Now on the experience of how it went for Maaco, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It was a very quick and seamless process. Everything was super easy. You went in, you showed them the vehicle, they do a full walk around with you, asking what you want done, body work, metal repair if needed, paint color change, all that stuff. And so it was super easy. And then they gave me a date to bring the truck back, which was 2 weeks from the day I got the quote. I brought it back. They had 3 weeks and I picked it up. Super quick and easy. So from the convenience piece, Maaco was definitely there. Now prep. I didn't do a lot to the 68 Dart. I got dust flying over here. I basically just rescued it from the junkyard, did a bunch of go fast mods to it so that I could race over at Duct Tape Drags in Verona, and then just kind of kept it outside under a cover and raced it whenever I wanted. I didn't do anything to the body to like prep it for this repair. It was still super crusty. In fact, I put black duct tape over the rust so my HOA would leave me alone from it. And so he went through, did all the metal work, prepped all the body, took all the panels off, which, you know, some say yes, do that, some say don't. Regardless, because it was a color change from black to the red, the original red, took everything off, and it looks fantastic. So prep, I gave an 8 out of 10 for Mexico. A lot of work was done into it. Could have done a little bit more prep, which is why it's not 10 out of 10, but 8 out of 10 is pretty good. Maaco. I'm just laughing thinking about it. Everybody that has done any kind of research on Maaco knows from other forums and whatnot that the prep and the pre-paint laying work scope for Maaco is always lacking. They like to shoot it and go, right? Again, their whole business model is based on volume. So prep work, which is how you get a really good paint job, is like 95% of the time required to get a car painted. So I actually went the extra mile with the Trailduster. I removed the grill, I removed the handles, the door locks, removed the mirrors, a bunch of stuff in preparation for giving them the car, just because I know they like to tape everything and their tape jobs aren't that great. And they still got a bunch of overspray on the windows and a bunch of other stuff. So I ended up taking razor blades and shaving it off, and the preparation was not the best. I gave them a 4 out of 10. So way less than the Mexico portion. Now, quality of the finished product. If you look at parts 1 and 2, I go into a lot more detail on the 68 Dart, specifically part 2, after I received it back. And the paint job itself is very good. It's nowhere near like a concourse type paint, of course. There are like a couple fisheyes, some spots where it's not perfectly straight, but a lot of attention to detail was done towards the buffing part of this paint job. And so it has a very nice finish looking down the side. It's not a bunch of waves going down. It's very straight. So I gave that a 7 out of 10. Could have gone a little bit more, but my pain points on the quality, some of it involved like panel alignments, you know, because everything was taken off for the color change, wasn't necessarily put back on in the way or the shape that I would have wanted it. I like 1/4-inch gaps everywhere. Don't necessarily have that here, which is not a problem. I can kind of fix that, but there's also some overspray on like some of the small mirror piece, and just here and there. It wasn't obviously a 10, but a 7 out of 10 was a pretty respectable price. And that's not like with just me thinking about what I could receive from a quality standpoint from Mexico. That's me looking at the spectrum of absolutely garbage rattle can to one of the best I've ever seen at a car show. So 7 out of 10 was pretty good. The Maaco paint job was actually better than I was expecting. This is the first time I'd ever gone to Maaco. I gave it a 5 out of 10, which was kind of average, right? 5 being right in the middle on a scale from 1 to 10. So 5 out of 10 is what I gave Maaco. Some of the pain points, apart from talking about the lack of prep where they oversprayed the windows and stuff, it looked like, and this was the biggest one, there's a couple more, but the biggest piece that bothered me with the paint job quality was it looked like after they had painted it, somebody touched the door or they dinged the door or something, because right in the center of the driver's side door, you could tell they went back with paint and like tried to apply it via brush in the size of like a dime, and it was a little bit off color, didn't quite match, and everybody kind of pointed it out, which obviously bugged the hell out of me. But that combined with the fact there was orange peel kind of everywhere on the Trailduster, it was a 5 out of 10. So that's what you can expect on the quality standpoint. Risk. Obviously, we got to talk about it. You already know that the Mexico option is going to be lower on the scale for this, higher risk but lower score, and I gave it a 2 out of 10. The reason why I took the 68 Dart instead of the 77 or instead of the 78 Trailduster, again, the Trailduster was a couple years ago. I was going to do the 77 Ram Charger, but I had a lot of sentimental value on the Ram Charger, so I took the Dart instead, just thinking that if something happened, I couldn't get it back. If it got stolen, obviously I'd be livid, but I'd be a little bit less livid. I don't have the sentimental connection to it. And again, I had a very good reference from my neighbor who had a few cars painted, so I decided to go ahead and do it with the 68 Dart. But I gave it a 2 out of 10 because if something happens, you're really SOL. Like, you could try to contact folks, you can contact authorities, but the shot of you getting it back is very low. And like, on the flip side of that is, apart from worrying about it getting stolen, if the quality or the work scope doesn't match what you were paying for and you're upset with the final product, you don't have a whole lot of legal authority to try to sue. So you're really kind of just, you're stuck with the referral. It's all based on the referral. You got to go to somebody that has a very good referral, more than one, that you can apply some trust towards. So 2 out of 10, just because the risk is high. So get a good referral. Maaco, I gave it a 7 out of 10. And I gave it a 7 instead of a 5 for an average US shop, because going to Maaco is a little bit higher risk. You know that the prep is not quite there, and it's obviously not a very expensive paint job, Everybody kind of knows their model is volume. And if you go there and it's really bad, which some folks have had really bad paint jobs from them, then you're going to have to take that down. A lot more time and money is going to be required of you to correct the problem after Maaco. Now, we've talked about 6 different categories. I'm just a talking head on your camera right now, but I figured you're really just wanting to see what these scores are, what the assessment is, and what my final recommendations are. So I'm not worrying about editing this into some great, fantastic video for you. Totals. The Dart got a total of 34 points out of a possible 60. So right in the middle of that, right? But really that's not what we're doing. We're comparing it to Maaco. So what did Maaco get? Well, if you were following along with the numbers, if you were writing them down, you probably already know, but
It got a 38 out of 60.
so it's definitely scored higher on the Maaco portion than the Mexico portion. So if we're going purely based off of the stats, then Maaco is going to be a better option than Mexico if you're valuing all these categories at the same level. You know, price, timeline, experience, prep, quality, and risk. If all of those are equally as important to you, Maaco is going to be a better option for you. However, my personal recommendation is if you are within proximity to the border, you know, you're within maybe, I'd say 3 hours. If you're beyond 3 hours, maybe you'd have to make an excuse for a trip to come down. If you have a really good referral, and not just from like one person or just from one car you've seen, you know, if you can talk to the person, look at their Facebook page or whatnot, which the guy I went to, he's got a Facebook page, posts all of his cars. It gives you a better idea for, you know, what kind of quality you can expect. And that referral, they can tell you what it was like dealing with the person, if they were really responsive, if they followed scope of work, if the price stayed the same at the end of the transaction when you pick the car up. All that is super important. So if you have a good referral, I would weigh the Mexico option higher. I'm really glad I took both cars to their prospective shops. I think that was the right decision for me. I got a lot of hate, and I'm sure I've already got some comments in this video after a couple months, I'm sure, of people just ragging on me for taking a car down to Mexico. First of all, they're our neighbors. Come on, man, we gotta be nice. And plus, I'm really close to the border, so everyone around me has been telling me to go there. I wanted to figure it out. And I wanted to see what the results were when you compare Maaco and Mexico and share that with you. So I would not fear going to Mexico for another paint job again. I would not bring something that was like super close to me sentimentally, just in case something happened. But if it was a car that perhaps I was going to sell or I wasn't going to do anything else with because it just, maybe I didn't have the time or the money, or if the car really based on its value wasn't worth it, 100% I would not shy away from going to Mexico. Likewise, Maaco, if you've got something that maybe the quality is not such a concern for you, you just want it to look better, you're okay with a 10-footer. You don't need someone to come up there, or you don't care if somebody comes up and is pointing out fish eyes and small imperfections. If you just want it to look better, you're going to go on the trail, so it might get scratched up, Maaco is a fantastic option. Also, of course, if you're like up in Montana or somewhere farther, you may not have the option for Maaco, so at least you can kind of see what your comparison would be when looking at a Mexico option. But yeah, that's really what I want to share with you guys. I hope you appreciate the video, you learned something from it, take some notes. Don't really shy away from either if it isn't the right fit for you, right? Don't ever expect a concourse type quality from either of these options, because there's a reason why people drop $20, $30, sometimes $50,000 on paint and body work. It's because they're looking for a certain quality, and it's very difficult to get that. It takes a lot of time. But for the 95% of us that aren't so enamored with that level of quality, these are two really good options, and maybe one's right for you. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're not, please hit the like and subscribe button. I appreciate it. Hope you all have a great day. Till next time.